Hello, today's April 14th, 2021. My name is Patrick Lichty, and I'm here today uh, with Greg Little, um, who's in Oberlin, Ohio, and he is a mixed media artist, digital artist, painter, sculptor, and so on. Is that accurate?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, welcome to Techspressionism. Yeah, totally, exactly. So, well, let's just dive into it. So, tell the audience about yourself. It's like now this is interesting. I know where you were born,
Okay.
and so and where are you now? You were born in Indiana.
I was born in Indiana. Yeah.
You were born in Indiana, and so like
everyone's favorite state, right?
Exactly. So what are your culture influences, where, and where you're living and working now and all that sort of thing. Where you're born, where are you now? What's your culture influences?
Okay. Cultural influences. Yeah. So I was born in a small sort of I was born in a small farming community with some industry, a little bit suburban, but lots of farms. In Tipton, Indiana, right, which is, if you draw an X across the state of Indiana, it's right at the center. So I was born surrounded by kind of a long horizons, sublime landscape, quiet, that kind of thing, all white. The clan was nearby all the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but yeah, I saw yeah. Anyway, I won't get into that, but that did have a strong influence on me, I would say. I went to Indiana University for college. I could not wait to get away, and so going to Indiana University was a way to do that. I studied painting and drawing and philosophy and art history and Italian cinema and all kinds of things at Indiana. It was the greatest thing ever. I loved it there. Spent 6 years there, getting all kinds of minors, and then I applied to graduate schools in painting. I wanted to continue doing what I was doing, and I got into Yale and 4 other schools, and decided to go to Yale.
That's not bad.
Where I studied painting. Yeah, it was cool.
That's all right.
It was culture shock for me, but it was cool. As a graduate student, it was a very different kind of environment than being a Yale undergrad. It's incredibly different kind of context.
Yeah.
But there I studied with primarily with Andrew Forge and Elizabeth Murray, and a little bit with Mel Bachner and Judy Pfaff. So they were, but I'd say that Elizabeth and Andrew were my main influences. So I was always an abstract painter, and always interested in, or semi-abstract painter, I guess, at times, and always interested in Expressionism, which is part of what brings me to Techspressionism.
Yeah, exactly.
I spent my undergraduate days trying to outpaint de Kooning, which was quite a
who hasn't?
Yeah, right. That's what we all did. I was a 17th generation abstract expressionist, right? And let's see. So that's the background from.
Yeah. So when did this hit you? When did the epiphany, come upon you that you were thinking about, what made you, what was the epiphany that told you you were an artist, and when was it? And, how'd this make you go, boom, I'm going to do this?
For me, it wasn't really an epiphany. It was just part of who I was.
Okay.
And I know when I was 5 years old, or 4 years old, 6 years old, I learned to express myself through drawing and through painting mainly, and it became a way into my psyche. It was a way to express things that I couldn't seem to express otherwise. And so it was just part of me. It was never, it wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
The only choice I made really was to not become a race car driver. That was my second choice as a young man, and you know,
and the question is oval rally or sprint?
Grand Prix.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah,
well, if you were going to do it that,
then cool.
all right. Yeah.
Grand Prix. But yeah, I didn't do that. But yeah, it was not a choice, Patrick. There was nothing epiphanous about it. It was
all right.
It's just what I did.
Yeah. So thing
and
is,
that became part of my ego, and it became, oh yeah, give it to him, he can draw, or we need a map, Greg, can you make a map? We need a it was like, it became part of my identity through that.
Yeah, we need a picture of the cat on the wall. So it's like, can you do that? Yeah, exactly.
Do that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So thing is, you kind of talked about your upbringing and who you studied with at Yale and how they shaped you and that sort of thing. But the thing is that beyond your upbringing and beyond your education, where do you draw influence from?
Now,
sure.
I draw a lot of my influence comes from science.
Okay.
From speculation, scientific speculation theories. Especially genetics and particle physics. I don't pretend to understand them, but I draw influence from them. I find the images and ideas and thoughts to be utterly fascinating.
Yeah.
And also from from literature, from writers, other writers like Nabokov and Foster Wallace and writers like that.
Yeah.
I draw a lot from there, and just through observation of nature. I think one of the things about growing up in Indiana, close to the land, so to speak, was I became contemplative of nature and its forces and influences, and I think that has had a strong effect on my work as well.
Sure. This is a little side thing is that. Have you seen the bit about the new discovery about the muon wobble and how that might
yes,
might redefine
muon, yes.
Physics, and that sort of thing? What do you think?
Yes, it's the next step after Higgs,
Yeah.
And, what do I think? I think it's just so fascinating.
Exactly, right?
Trying to visualize these things is what I'm always about. My daughter does a lot of work with genetics. She's an analytical chemist, and I'm always like, well, what does it look like? Well, how can you? And she looks at me like, I don't know. It doesn't look like anything. It's numbers,
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm just wondering, then what does it mean symbolically to us as human beings? In other words, is that does the universe wobble and gyrate in ways that we have no idea about now?
Well, we don't know what to look for. It's all there. It's really a matter of knowing what to look for, because it's all, if you can't look for something, if you don't know what you're looking for, you're blind to it. So but yes, the universe wobbles. Yes, I mean the fact that the perfect symmetry notion just completely destroyed by Higgs is another fascinating thing.
It's like, how do you see green if you're a cat?
Yes, that's right. Is the refrigerator, is the light on in the refrigerator when the door is closed? Question.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that makes me want to go and go check the refrigerator, but I'm not at home at the moment.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. So okay, well, we're before we start looking at your work, what's your process like? The thing is, I know your work really well, and the thing is that you have these really interesting hybrid processes, and so if you could tell the audience about that.
Yeah, well, this is I'm old. I've been doing this for a long time, so the process has evolved slowly for many years at this point. So as I stated, I started out in painting and drawing, and I've always kept my hand in that, and I have a great bit of knowledge, frankly, about paints and pigments and all that stuff. So there's that. And then in around 99, no, I'm sorry, around 89, I started working digitally with stuff. I became very interested in what I could do for my paintings with a computer, which is not how it ended up working, but I stopped painting altogether for 15 years probably, and developed all these digital processes. The conversion or sort of aha or epiphanous moment that I may have had was when I met Jaron Lanier and put on a head-mounted display in 1991, and watched a low poly count lobster wander around the kitchen, and was like, my mind was blown, not by the lobster or the kitchen or the poly count, but by the potential that I saw there. And so at that point I stopped painting, which was a really unrealistic and unrealistic thought on mine, impulse on my part, because I had no idea how computers worked. I'd never even had a computer. So I began trying to make virtual reality in 1991. And so through that process, I learned all these digital practices, self-taught entirely, and also began teaching them, which I taught the first VR class probably in the Midwest, maybe, I don't know, but it was in 1992. I taught a VR class at Kent State University. And so that, then I began, and I've always been a lover of jazz and music, and that has an influence on the work as well. So at this point, I've circled back around where I'm now painting, I'm grinding pigments, I'm building supports, but I'm working on virtual environments. I have a library of assets that I've been creating, for 10 or 15 years, and I can just draw on these assets and make them virtual, make them digital, make them corporeal, cut them out, stick them together. So it's become a very, for me, satisfying kind of flow between the virtual, the digital, and the physical, and I don't even know the difference anymore at this point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am. So I'm combining somewhat cutting edge technologies with ancient technologies in a pretty unself-conscious way, I think, at this point.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I might add in there is that, I mean, you definitely do have the thing I think is very interesting is that I think that with your work, you kind of merge elements of the notion of physics and the transmutative notion of physics as it might relate to alchemy.
Sure.
In other words, in some ways, that they're almost maybe analogous processes in different traditions.
Yeah, I mean, I would support that. I think that the mention of alchemy these days makes me cringe a little bit, because it's so, I mean, everyone's into alchemy these days, right?
Yeah,
but I do totally see your point, and was much more literally involved, I guess, or literally involved in alchemy years ago.
I think that rather than the popular conception of it now is just maybe the metaphorical conception of it as the notion of transformation and transmutation of
exactly. When one of the elements within the transmutation process becomes, say, big data or something like that,
So I mean, that's kind of like a little bit of a
that's
kind of a little bit of a deeper read. So anyway, okay, well, why don't we take a look at
some
let's
stuff?
take a look at that. Let's take a look at some stuff, and then
do you want me to show you what I'm working on right now, or do you want me to show you some background first?
Maybe, well, maybe a little earlier stuff, and then let's go in here, maybe like 10-ish pieces.
Yeah, I've got some stuff loaded.
Okay.
So what do let's see. So I just click on.
So you just share screen. Yep.
And desktop. So it has a desktop one. Let's see which desktop this is. I have two desktops running here, and I'm not sure.
I usually have too many tabs open, myself. So it usually takes me 10 minutes to figure it out.
Okay, so let me try this. Tell me what happens.
Okay.
Right, it wants me to open the system preferences to grant access.
Okay.
Zoom.
Yep.
Later. Okay.
So just for reference, we're talking to you in your studio in back of the house, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a little context. Now. Yep. Okay.
We're good now. Yeah. Yeah. This is my studio. I won't show you around that, but okay. So what do you see?
Yeah. It's okay. Just
Okay. So what we want to do is now we're going to open preview.
Okay.
Computers grant access. I think I did this already.
Yeah, I think you're fine.
Okay. All right.
All right. There we go. We've got some stuff.
Here we go. Okay.
Okay.
We have a Caravaggio there.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Okay. Yep.
So do you see Caravaggio?
I sure do.
Okay. So this is really old, and this is when I first met Jaron Lanier and started working with computers and thinking about virtual reality. The first thing that occurred to me was, well, what are we going to look like to each other? And this was before the term avatar had become assigned to virtual environments. But so this was one of my speculations on a creature in virtual space. These are all done Photoshop and sometimes pre-Photoshop back in the day. But working with computers like in 89 or 90 and in the university was a weird thing because most people working with computers were not artists, and they were coders, and they really knew what they were doing. And I didn't. I was a very suspicious character and was assigned to work at night and all kinds of stuff. And the computer took on this.
Yeah, you sure were.
And it was about the same time that that Simon Penny declared that the computer was a weapon, and that basically if you're making art on the computer, you're using a weapon to make art. And of course, there's a history of that with people like John Whitney and stuff. But that really colored kind of the way I thought about the tool that I was using. It was all very transgressive feeling to me at the time. This is a piece that you might remember, Patrick.
I sure do, actually.
Okay, so this was a virtual reality piece done in virtual reality modeling language in about mid-90s maybe, Patrick?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was for it was a virtual world for a handheld device, and this is before the iPhone or the iPad or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and this was in a show that Patrick curated called Through the Looking Glass, I think it was.
Yeah. That was late 90s.
Coding a world in virtual reality modeling language that would fit on a handheld device was a arduous and difficult task. I think the whole thing was about 18K, something like that. Yeah. And then on the other end, I did some residencies when I was trying to learn about virtual reality, and this was a residency done in Middlesbrough at the University of Teesside in the UK, and this was inside their Hemispherium, which was this gigantic hemisphere screen that was driven by 3 or 4 refrigerator-sized silicon graphics machines, and they let me come in and work at night for about 3 weeks and build a virtual world. So this is where I gained some experience with that. This is another residency done at Brown University, and this is inside of a virtual reality cave environment. And that's again about mid-90s, I guess.
Yep.
This is a still shot from a virtual world that I made. I worked on this VR project for about 8 years, which again was extremely unrealistic because there were so few people I could show my work to.
Sure.
And there were no places really to show it. And I was starting from scratch really. This is an installation done somewhat later when I stopped working with VR and started working more with straight ahead coded animations. So these are 3D animations projected large scale that are done entirely in code using the Blitz 3D engine.
Yep, remember it well. Yep.
And, detail. I was working with some DNA software. I was basically taking protein sequences and modeling them, in Maya, and converting the numbers to coordinates and things like that. So later projection project done also in Blitz 3D called Birds of Ohio. These are some prints that are on canvas. They're approximately 4.5, 5 feet high, called Synoetic Systems.
What? Yeah. Would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
I knew you'd ask that. Yeah. So Synoetics is this concept that I ran across, coined by Louis Fine, who was a colleague of Doug Engelbart, and
1958, if I'm correct.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For 1960, and I became, I became very interested in the history of computation as part of the history of new media art or digital art, and the issue was at the time was what to do with computers after World War II. So they have all these equipment sitting around, all these experts, all this stuff going on, and a decision was made by Engelbart and friends, including Fine, that the computer's computation should be used to enhance human activity, human thought, human abilities.
Yep.
And so Fine was part of that, and this concept of synoetics was a concept that, in his mind, joined input from all different worlds, all different ways of measuring into a single sort of a single concept, or something that was the sum of which was greater than, or the total of which was greater than the sum of its parts, which was kind of interesting as a thought. And so I thought of these images as a kind of slice through a synoetic landscape where the genetic, the astrophysical, the diagrammatic, the alchemic, all these things could kind of come together at once. The gray stripe down the center was the sort of the emergence of the news stream or world of images that we live in, that we just kind of coming in like static, or like a crack in the space, which is kind of what we work with. So that's from that series, which is an ongoing series. There were 4 at the time this photo was taken. I think there are about 8 of them now. I work on things for a very long time. The first one of these was done in 2006, and I'm still working on the series, so 15 years later. This is another installation of, this is a 8-channel video installation. I was working on an animation based on a composition by a colleague of mine, Jeffrey Mumford, who's a new music composer. And this composition was called Echoes, and it was in 12 movements. And so I was doing 12 different animations, one for each movement. And in this case, we decided, rather than having it be kind of a linear event, to have it be a kind of all at once event. So at this point, 8 of the movements that I had animated are playing at the same time. Right. And so you can walk around through the space. So your ability to navigate the temporal quality of the music is through walking around.
So what year is this?
This is 2016. Okay. I think, yeah.
Okay, we're nearing up on things.
Yeah, and then this is current now, so we are at the present. But I left, obviously I had to leave out a lot of stuff, but when you've been working as long as I have, your life is about editing. So of course. Yeah, so that's that.
That's kind of it.
Yeah. Any
Okay.
questions?
Yeah. So
Hand on?
what's that?
Anything you want to hear more about before I show you what I'm working on now?
Well, so how does this notion of what we're doing in kind of revisiting the notion of expressionism, through the use of technology, how's that resonate with you?
Oh, it's totally overlies with what I've always felt was lacking in so much digital culture. Was kind of kind of subjective expression
Yeah.
that was tied to something, potentially something physical or corporeal. So yeah, it works really well for me. Like I said, when I first started working with computers, I'd be sitting as I said, at night in some math lab or something, working on a computer screen, and I'd always have to hide what was on my screen or replace it quickly with something else because I didn't want people to see what I was doing, explain it, and I didn't have time. I was needed to get work done, and but the sort of these sort of generic gray boxes that we were surrounded by at the time just was screaming for some kind of expression, and
Yeah, it's all very left brain Apollonian, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah. So that's the thing I want to bounce off you is this notion that somehow we think that that the machine is somehow something other than human. In other words, because it isn't made of flesh and blood and that sort of things, that it that somehow is something other than human. But if you look at it more closely, the keyboard is made for the hand. The monitor using RGB is completely tailored to the rods and cone. I mean to the cones. And then the thing is that why then can't we think that from a McLuhanist perspective that the computer is just another emotional or affective extension of the human existence, right?
It is, and good and bad.
Of course.
The bad and the ugly, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and my feeling, initially when I began working with them was that my job was kind of a subversive one because I did feel that the people that I was surrounded by who were working on computers at the time were often, they were not expressive. They were not terribly expressive people, it seemed to me, at least. Their interests were pretty narrow, and how they saw computation was very narrow as well, and did not seem at all to me in the spirit of Engelbart and Fine and Vannevar Bush and people like that who really had a very different vision for how the computer should work. So yeah, of course, it is an extension of those things, and those things are kind of, I think the keyboard, that's all kind of stale at this point. We need to go somewhere else. People are with things like Magic Leap and stuff, but
yeah,
long ways to go.
Yeah, may Magic Leap rest in peace at this point.
I know, exactly, right?
Yeah. So
I hear the Quest 2 has hand recognition, gesture recognition.
It does. It does pretty well.
Yeah, I don't have a Quest 2 yet. I'm still a couple of years behind on the head-mounted displays. I put my first one on, as I said, back in '92. So,
yeah, I did 94. So yeah, and with the same person.
Yes.
So that's
good guy.
Yeah, exactly. He probably, he and Shar Davies later on probably did as much to popularize the creative notions of VR as anybody, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And where has Shar gone? I think she's painting now, but she was painting before too. But yeah. These are forgotten names that we need to bring back.
Of course.
How can we talk about virtual reality, which is running through another wave of popularity these days, without talking about Shar Davies? But no one does, so we have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have some interesting people like Brenda Laurel, and then Nicole Stinger and Marcus Novak, and it's like these are, I think these are people we should.
Margaret Dolinsky.
Well, something, she is She's our next interview too.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah. So
Terrific.
that's it, and then, Margaret, and then Cynthia Beth Rubin, and, just exactly.
Cynthia is the person who sat me down at the computer for the first time.
Really?
Yes. She had purchased one workstation. This is how things used to be. She had one workstation for the art department, and students would make appointments, and it was sitting in a little room in the library. And she let me make an appointment too. So I sat down in front of her. That's where it started. So it's all her fault.
There you go. Well, you got to blame somebody.
All Cindy's fault. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So let's see here. So this is what you're working on currently, right?
Yeah. So I can show you what I did was, because the things that most of the things I'm working on right now,
Okay.
are objects that hang on the wall. So I just thought I would show them to you.
Okay.
So, and I can kind of talk over these, I think.
Sure.
So
That'd be great.
That I do want to go full screen. Why is it not playing? There. Okay. Yeah. So this is a painting this is painted over a digital print on canvas. So it's an archival inkjet print, and I decided to use surface, and I wanted to switch up the color. So this is a hand ground pigment and acrylic emulsion on canvas. And
are you using turquoise or?
Yes, that is pure turquoise.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to see what I could get away with just the 4 colors. And I'm still working on it, as you can see at the bottom. I'm adding some stuff. But
yeah.
Another one that's in process. This one I've been working on literally since 2014. It started out as a little sketch in a sketchbook, and then that got scanned, printed on canvas, and then I began painting and collaging and cutting over it, and then reprinting things. That's some sort of a spaghetti waste from a 3D printer that'll become integrated into the surface there. And these are based on some scientific images of wave formations. And
do you have your own large format printer?
I don't. No, I'm able to use one through the university.
I see.
The college where I teach, Lorain County Community.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the reasons that I like teaching is because it's one of the few fields that actually supports this kind of research.
That's true.
So I like that.
Access is good.
Yeah. So these are just some details.
Those are really interesting. That's really interesting.
So even when I was making virtual realities for caves and head-mounted displays, everyone said, "Wow, they're so painterly,"
Yeah.
This is a series of these are some assets. Again, these were created in 2015 using a 3D modeling app on the iPad that Autodesk had for a while that no longer exists, where you could kind of sculpt these objects using your finger on an iPad.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
What was the name of the app?
I don't remember. It's no longer exists. I can't even access the files.
Unbelievable.
But you can see that shape then, some of those shapes then become incorporated in other works. And these are 3D models, which I'm also animating these days using some things from Adobe Mixamo, where I can assign like mocap data to them, which is pretty funky stuff. Here's some of the pigments that
your material library. Very nice. What's the range of materials you're using for your pigments?
Oh, well, I use a lot of stuff. I find colors that I just fall in love with. It's a very sensual process for me.
Sure.
One that I'm going to be using later today. That's made from a tar that comes up out of the earth. It actually smells like asphalt. The pigment does. It's really dense, and I use all the cadmiums and things like that. But what's really cool about pigment pigment hunting these days is that there are some amazing earth colors that come from all over the world. I used to be more limited to, the traditional ochres and siennas and things like that, but now there are these fantastic colors coming from Cyprus and from the Rocky Mountains and all kinds of places.
Wow.
These are some tiny little collages that sometimes get painted on, sometimes get blown up into larger things, sometimes don't.
Working with sound waves, yeah?
Yep. Yes. Sound
Okay.
waves are one of the things I visualize. Here's a plan for a virtual reality piece. I have stacks of lines where I kind of think in terms of these layers of realities. Feedback recursivity on autopoiesis in the diagram.
Very, very, very appropriate for this day and age.
This is some of the stuff that runs through my mind. I think that's the end of this one. Yeah.
Okay. Is that primarily your main reel? That's really fascinating.
Then this is a quick one of some more creative works. This is only 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Sure. Yep.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah,
that's fine.
These pieces are layers and layers and layers of pigment on paper with aqueous binders, and then I use a laser to etch patterns and images into them. These are some of the kinds of scientific diagrams that I find that I really enjoy playing with as pieces of, they become like language. And all of these started, this started as a frame from the animation from the 8-channel video, that one. And then I print out the frame and then begin working from it. That's exactly the same configuration as the copper colored painting with the turquoise.
Yeah.
Laser etching into layers of pigment.
That's really interesting. Yeah. One thing that's interesting here, you're talking about language, but the thing is that it seems like you're going between that which has a representation and the asemic.
The what?
The asemic, in other words, the lacking semantics.
Yes, exactly.
So
nice word. I didn't know that word.
Yeah, it's Jim Leftwich coined it in the late 90s.
Okay.
And that's actually something I use in my calligraphy work. Okay.
These are actually working with cold wax and pigment.
These are super beautiful.
Yeah.
So the thing is so what's going on in the background with this one, and what's the differences in the process in the foreground and the background on these?
The foreground and the background.
Yeah, I mean like the gold and then the black and white. And they seem like that they're very very stark.
Yeah. The black and white. You mean like the frames down the center, or the?
No, it was like the central figure as opposed to like the gold, the gold background that was that you're showing. Yeah.
Well, the central figure is basically represents media intervention. It's a stark black and white thing.
Yeah.
That, as I said earlier, kind of leaks into these worlds.
Sure.
This is one that's based on a Sun Ra song called "Others in Their World." And this one I have all of these elements are actually 3D elements that were created in Maya and other places. That's a flock of birds there. And so this one is in process in becoming an AR piece where we have a color grid on the wall, and then those images will pop out or are popping out AR. So you can see how it goes from painting to AR and back and forth.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, it's do you think the next step is maybe going to be like with the the proposed Apple glasses, things like that? What do you think is going to be happening with the future with all this?
Oh, wow. I think it will.
What's the future, Greg?
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, the Apple glasses are interesting. I think they're a bit like the Magic Leap in terms of how I understand them, because they are they're ergonomically and prescripted for a single individual. You'll have like with the Magic Leap, you would have your own Magic Leap headset, which doesn't exist anymore. But I think the Apple glasses will be the same kind of thing. I think it's just gonna kind of disappear into us and become completely acceptable. And I think to some degree, I sometimes feel like we're sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. I love that phrase, but I think that it often seems to me that especially in the VR, AR thing, where things are becoming, the platforms are becoming specific to, portable phones and personal devices and things like that.
Right.
But I think we're losing some of the questions and notions of presence and changing presence and occupying different presences that were so valuable, I think, in large scale VR, so fascinating. And now it's becoming, I don't know, the internalization of the media, I guess, is disappointing to me. But that's always been where it's kind of inevitable, I suppose, at the same time. But I do look for those places where that's not happening as much, where the commercialization and the sales and the commodification haven't quite taken over. I like your interventions that you sometimes talk about with that sort of thing, like the shoes that you did, the Nike shoes that you did.
Oh, yeah, the ones that were either, the one that was that had Arbeiten, which was kind of like child worker, but with the German flag colors, then the Iraqi flag colors.
That kind
Geo
of
Bush,
those sorts of interventions, I think, are totally necessary. For me, though, I'm making worlds like this, making artwork like this, is about kind of offering an alternative reality, and I don't see that. I mean, kind of a way, not, I don't want to say escape, but an alternative reality. I don't see that happening so much with what we're working on, what people are working on now with the Apple glasses and things like that. It just seems to be more of the same. So.
In other words, what is it? What McLuhan was talking about, hot and cold media. In other words, you're getting towards like a hotter media, which basically kind of takes away interpretation.
Yes.
And so what happens is that as the experiences that we have in these virtual spaces become more defined and the resolution gets higher, in other words, basically takes do you think that it takes away part of our interpretation?
Completely right. I mean, it's not to be about interpretation anymore.
It's about to be representation rather than interpretation.
Yeah, or just presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here you are. Here's your experience.
Yeah. Exactly.
Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think the re part is even beginning to disappear.
That's an interesting notion. Then what happens? Does the virtual space and the space we've been used to, do they merge then when that happens?
Well, they are merging, yes, and the goal is to make that as seamless a merger as possible. And, I just keep thinking back to Dada, where the merger was not seamless. The merger was abrupt and torn and chopped and scaled, and that Dada aesthetic, I think, would be, well, it's not going to sell anything, but I support seeing more of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The seamless. I mean, one of the reasons I think surrealism was so able to be absorbed into design and sales and advertising is because of the seamless quality. And that same quality is what we're seeing in AR, especially AR interventions.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
I like things that are more disruptive.
There we go. We don't want to get too complacent. Don't want to get too used to things, do we?
Oh, no.
No.
Well, some things, but
Yeah, there you go.
not in the
Fair enough.
artwork. No, not in the artwork.
All right. So let's hear, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to throw in the mix?
Oh, well, I just throw this little guy in. This
Okay.
is a little fun thing I'm having a good time with. I'll just toss it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
This is in process, but
Mm.
there we go. Just a little looping animation. That
Careful.
makes
That's
me
on. That's almost an NFT.
It is. Well, I like the platforms. I've become really curious about making tiny little things that are short, that loop, that are so digital. They're totally digital,
Right.
and you don't have to have a $5 billion machine to make them run, and all the kind of high-end, high-res stuff that I've been interested in before. It just makes me happy. So I thought
Yeah. And we've got kind of a conversation going on now about the concreteness of the digital object now, with tying it to the blockchain, that sort of thing.
Right.
And that's the sort of grounding I don't think we've had. We've had until recently.
It's funny to think of the blockchain as grounding, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. Or at least making a trustless provenance.
Yes, highly quantified.
Yeah. In other words, is that something that you haven't been able to get your hands around, but this is a way to kind of digitally we can get our hands around the digital art object.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is
absolutely true.
Kind of interesting.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, and then this is a much longer conversation, but this kind of speaks to what I'm thinking about, like Benjamin's idea of the the art in the age of reproduction, but of mechanical reproduction. But this is the art in the age of like post-mechanical. This is like the idea of what that line of thought is maybe today.
Yeah.
And then what happens to the idea of the presence of the work when you're able then to tie it to something more or less concrete, like cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
right.
These are strange and interesting things.
They are. You can you'll sell your aura as an NFT. Huh?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what. This has been a really fascinating period of time. It's probably close to an hour, and I want to thank you for joining us. And this has been really, really fantastic. So,
well, I'm very excited about what you all are doing with this Techspression thing. And, I think it's kind of about time, and I find it a great outlet during COVID lockdowns. It's like a refreshing breath of air here. So
yeah, this is the kind of thing I think that speaks to a lot of us with this, is that in this age in which we're kept apart from each other so much in so many different ways, is I think this is a way to reconnect with that that which makes us human, maybe in the good sense.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And that was fantastic. So thank you.
Thanks for spending some time with me, Patrick.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.